I'm Sebastian Linde, and this presentation is an assignment for the class English 3236, Technical Report Writing. The topic of this presentation is lead in drinking water, Puerto Rico facing a crisis. I hope you enjoy and take something from this presentation. Thank you. The agenda of this presentation is, at first, a short introduction, then general information about lead in drinking water, health effects of exposure to lead, Puerto Rico's drinking water at crisis, what you can do, and at the end, the conclusions. Introduction. The main idea of this presentation is to show the quality of drinking water and how lead is one of the biggest contaminants on Puerto Rico. Presenting basic and also technical and specific information, how to test drinking water at home, presenting water quality reports among other studies related to the subject, and also show how you can reduce lead contamination at your home. The purpose is to demonstrate how contaminants as lead and lack of education in the subject can directly affect us and even unleash a crisis on the country. Lead is the commonest of the heavy elements. Lead is used in the production of lead-acid batteries, solder, alloys, cable sheeting, pigment, rust inhibitors, ammunition, glases, and plastic stabilizers. Tetraethyl and tetramethyl lead are important because of their extensive use as anti-knock compound in petrol. From a drinking water perspective, the almost universal use of lead compounds is plumbing, feeding, and also soldering water distribution system is important. Lead pipes may be used in older distribution systems and plumbing. Lead exposure is not only on drinking water, but also on air and in food. In this presentation, we are emphasizing in drinking water, exposure and the status of it at Puerto Rico. Now, we continue to general information about lead in drinking water. First, how lead gets into drinking water. Lead can enter drinking water when service pipes that contain lead corrode, especially where the water has high acidity or low mineral content that corrodes pipe and fixtures. The most common problem is with brass or chrome-plated brass, faucets and fixture with lead solder, from which significant amount of lead can enter into the water, especially hot water. Homes built before 1986 are more likely to have a lead pipes, fixtures, and solder. The Safe Drinking Water Act, SDWA, has reduced the maximum allowable lead content, that is considered lead-free, to be a weighted average of 0.25%, calculated across the wetted surface of pipes, pipe fitting, plumbing fitting, and a fixture, and 0.2% for solder and flux. As we can see, a number of factors are involved in the extent to which lead enters the water, including the chemistry of the water, acidity and alkalinity, and the types and amounts of mineral in the water. The amount of lead it comes into contact with. Also important, the temperature of the water, because at higher temperatures, the diffusion parameter in lead increases, and at lower temperatures, the diffusion of lead in water decreases. The amount of gear in the pipes. Also important how long the water stays in pipes. As longer time passes, the water receives more content of lead. This means that the water will have a higher concentration of lead in it. In that case, we are receiving higher concentrations of contaminant in our body and in our water. Also, the presence of protective scales or coating inside the plumbing materials can be important. But of all these factors, the one that has more impact or the one that affect more the purity of drinking water is the corrosion. But corrosion is the most common way to let enter to our drinking water. Corrosion is the deterioration of a metal as a result of chemical reaction between it and the surrounding environments, in our case, mostly the water. Both types of metal and the environmental conditions, particularly gases that are in contact with the metal, determine the form and rate of deterioration. This meaning how fast the metal will deteriorate with contact with air or water. There are many different reasons for metal corrosion. Some can be avoided by adding alloy to a pure metal, others can be prevented by careful combination of metal or management of the metal's environment. Some of the most common types of corrosion are general attack corrosion, localized corrosion, and galvanic corrosion. In general attack corrosion, we can say that it's very common form of corrosion attacks the entire surface of a metal structure. That meaning that this kind of corrosion can attack the whole plumbing of your house, and is worse if the plumbing is made of lead. The localized corrosion is a corrosion that attacks only portion of a metal structure, and there are three types of localized corrosion. There is pitting, there is creeping corrosion, and filiform corrosion. Now, the third type of corrosion is galvanic corrosion. The galvanic corrosion can occur when two different metals are located together in a liquid electrolyte such as salt water or abnormal water. In essence, one metal molecules are drawn toward the other metal, leading to corrosion in only one of the two metals. This can happen when we have fixtures in our plumbing and they are from different metals. To address corrosion of lead and copper into drinking water, EPA issued the Lead and Copper Rule (LCR) under the authority of the SDWA. One requirement of the LCR is corrosion control treatment to prevent lead and copper from contaminating drinking water. Corrosion control treatment means utilities must make drinking water less corrosive to the materials it comes into contact with on its way to consumer taps. Now it's time to get a little bit dynamic. In this slide, we see a picture of EPA. EPA is the Environmental Protection Agency, and it's also concerned about lead in our drinking water. So in this image, we can see a house, and they told which can be sources of lead in our drinking water. As first, in the left, we can see that copper pipes with lead solders. Solder mains installed before 1986 contained high lead levels, so you must check when your pipes were installed and in which year your house was built. Also, we have in the right the faucet fixtures inside your home may contain lead. You must check the fabricant of your faucets. Lead service line. The service line is the pipe that runs from the water main to the home's internal plumbing. Lead service lines can be a major source of lead contamination in water. Also, we have the galvanized pipe. Lead particles can attach to the surface of galvanized pipe. Over time, the particles can enter your drinking water, causing elevated lead levels. And at last but not less important, lead goosenecks. Goosenecks and pigtails are shorter pipes that connect the lead service line to the main. Now, health effects of exposures to lead. Is there a safe level of lead in drinking water? The Safe Drinking Water Act requires EPA to determine the level of contaminants in drinking water at which no adverse health effects are likely to occur with an adequate measure of safety. These non-enforceable health goals, based solely on possible health risks, are called maximum contaminant level goals. EPA has set the maximum contaminant level goal for lead in drinking water at 0. Yes, at 0 because lead is a toxic metal that can be harmful to human health even at low exposure level. Lead is persistent and it can bioaccumulate in the body over time. Bioaccumulation. Young children, infants, and fetuses are particularly vulnerable to lead because our organism. Bioaccumulation could be a factor of the metabolism of each person. And it means that once the toxic enters to your body cannot get rid of this one. So, a long time the body is accumulating these low levels of lead. And with time, these low levels can convert into higher levels that can harm your health. And this doesn't mean that the lead doesn't affect adults. It just means that adults have more resistance to lead. But the lead could affect adults, women, men, children, and also animals. So we need to be very careful. In this slide, we present in a graphical form to whom and how the lead affects. First, children. Even low levels of lead in the blood of children can result in behavior and learning problems, lower IQ and hyperactivity, slower growth, hearing problems, and anemia. In rare cases, ingestion of lead can cause seizures, coma, and even death. Now, pregnant women. Lead can accumulate in our bodies over time, as we have said before, because of the bioaccumulation, where it is stored in bones along with calcium. During pregnancy, lead is released from bones as maternal calcium and is used to help form the bones of the fetus. This is particularly true if a woman does not have enough dietary calcium. Lead can also cross the placental barrier, exposing the fetus to lead. This can result in serious effects to the mother and her developing fetus, including reduced growth of the fetus and premature birth. Now, in adults, lead is also harmful to adults. Adults exposed to lead can suffer from cardiovascular effects, increase in blood pressure and increase of hypertension, decreased kidney function, and reproductive problems in both men and women. It's important to recognize that the drinking water is not the only source that we can be exposed to lead. It is important to recognize all the ways a person can be exposed to lead. We are exposed to lead in paint, dust, soil, air, and food, as well as drinking water. If the level of lead in someone's blood is at or above the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention (CDC) action level of 5 micrograms per deciliter, it may be due to lead exposure from a combination of sources. EPA estimates that drinking water can make up to 40% or more for a person's total exposure to lead. Infants who consume mostly mixed formula can receive 40% to 60% of the exposure to lead from drinking water. As we can see in the graph, the bigger percentage of lead exposure is gained by drinking water. Almost 50% of the lead exposure. Then it follows by others. Also, a big exposure source is the soil, followed by the dust, the food, and the air. At first, we can think that the drinking water at so low levels of lead cannot be harmful, but in combination with all the other sources and the bioaccumulation process, we can see that we can easily reach higher levels of lead in so few years that we need to be careful. Now, Puerto Rico's drinking water at crisis. Puerto Rico's drinking water system is on the brink of crisis. Elevated lead levels, bacteria, chemicals, and lax adherence to regulations have created a toxic mix for the American territories. 3 million plus citizens. Natural Resources Defenses Council Health Director Eric Olson told on the news, citing his group's latest research. Also said, Puerto Rico just clearly has the biggest challenge of any state or territory in the United States. The drinking water face lead safety regulation. While only 30% of the island is served by water that don't violate federal health standards. This means that 70% of the island is served by water that violates several health standards. The government-run water utility also routinely fails to conduct the required safety tests. While failing the safety tests they do conduct, according to a new Natural Resource Defense Council report. The status of the situation and where it points. The situation could deteriorate further because President Donald Trump has proposed big cuts to Environmental Protection Agency programs that fund the Puerto Rican's water system and federal safety enforcement mechanisms. Olson said, if you have got a system that is violating repeatedly with the drinking water standards, you are playing with fire, adding that it could bring on a medical crisis like the 1993 cryptoporidium outbreak in Milwaukee that infected 403,000 and killed 69. That's exactly what we don't want to happen in Puerto Rico. The data also indicates a faulty water treatment process that left behind too much bacteria and carcinogenic chemicals that are also linked to birth defects, as well as aging pipes that contaminate the water with lead and copper. After this is not an easy situation, but EPA got involved in other states, and maybe it took a while, but they got involved. But here in Puerto Rico, they know what's going on, but they just turn a blind eye. The EPA didn't respond to requests about Puerto Rico's potential loss of funding, instead blaming Obama for problems with the American water system. And the situation gets worse because now Puerto Rico is in debt. And now we already know that Puerto Rico drinking water is a crisis. Now, how are the important cities of the territory? As the important cities, we list Ponce, Mayagüez, and San Juan. We're gonna Now we are going to analyze the situation of Ponce. Ponce have a number of people served by the system with health violation is 17,162 persons, and the number of health violations are 41 violations. Now we go with Mayagüez, that is also an important city. Mayagüez have a number of people served by the system with health violations of 181,972 persons, and number of health violations are 5. As we can see, Mayagüez is not as bad as Ponce. Now, when you see San Juan, they have a lot of people that are served by the system. It's almost 1 million people served by the system, and they have 24 health violations. And in this violation, they are not show the lead standards that San Juan doesn't accomplish. San Juan have higher levels of lead in their water than another town in Puerto Rico. Now, what you can do? It's a 3 steps. Learn, test, and reduce. Now, we are going through each step. Learn. First, learn more about the water coming into your home. EPA requires all community water systems to prepare and deliver an annual water quality report called a Consumer Confidence Report, CCR, for your customers by July 1st of each year. As a second step, you can have your water tested for lead. Homes may have internal plumbing material containing lead, since you cannot see, taste, or smell lead dissolved in water. Testing is the only sure way. You can reduce your exposure to lead by use only cold water for drinking, cooking, and making baby formula. Boiling water does not remove lead from water. This doesn't mean that you cannot use hot water. This means when you get the water directly from the faucet or another dispenser, it's best if you take the water in a lower temperature, so then the lead doesn't diffuse into the water at high concentrations as it could be if you use hot water directly from your faucet or another dispenser area. Also, regularly clean your faucet screen, also known as an aerator. It's important that you consider using a water filter certified to remove lead and known when it is time to replace the filter. This is very important here in Puerto Rico because, as you already see, all the water in Puerto Rico doesn't accomplish health regulations. Also, you can replace your lead service line. Water systems are required to replace lead service line if a water system cannot meet EPA's lead action level to optimize corrosion control treatments. The replacement of the lead service line is often the responsibility of both the utility and the homeowner. The homeowners can contact the water system to learn about how to remove the lead service line. Now, to conclude this presentation, we present our conclusions. As a conclusion to this problem we are facing every day, we establish that we should make more social conscience and educate people so that they learn to reduce their exposure to lead and encourage them to do it. As also to demand as a society that the established parameters and regulations of health and exposure to contaminants be fulfilled and applied by the designated authorities to the distribution of drinking water on the different areas.